Yesterday morning, I watched my neighbor spend 2 full hours spraying a heavy chemical cocktail onto a patch of green right by his fence line, completely unaware that the plant he was trying so hard to kill actually contains more heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids than the expensive salmon sitting in his kitchen freezer. It made me shake my head a bit, because most folks around here do the exact same thing every weekend, bending their backs to pull these resilient plants out of the dirt and throwing them straight into the trash. Meanwhile, just a few miles down the road at our local farmers market, people are lining up to pay real hard-earned money for those exact same greens. We've been conditioned to think our yards need to look like a perfectly uniform synthetic golf course, but nature's running a completely different playbook beneath our boots. A surprising number of those stubborn, uninvited plants you're fighting in your garden beds right now. Update commercial grocery store produce in pure raw nutritional density. They've got more vitamins, more essential minerals, and in some cases a higher protein content than the babied lettuce you bought yesterday. By the time we're done talking today, you're going to know exactly how to identify 11 of the most common edible and medicinal weeds growing right outside your door. Understand the deep science of how they interact with the soil and know how to harvest them safely without making dangerous mistakes. To really understand why these plants are here, we've got to look back at how we ended up in this strange war with our own topsoil. This modern obsession with a sterile single-species grass lawn is a pretty recent invention. After World War II, the American suburban dream shifted heavily toward a uniform green carpet, and our culture started relying on intensive industrial shortcuts to force nature into a neat little box. The conventional gardening approach tells us that any plant out of place is a weed, a lawbreaker that needs to be poisoned or dug out immediately. Because of that mindset, home lawns across the country now receive a massive amount of chemical fertilizers and synthetic weed killers every single season. In fact, data compiled by the Environmental Protection Agency indicates that the average suburban lawn receives significantly more chemical pesticides per acre than industrial large-scale farmland. When you spray a synthetic broadleaf herbicide to clear out your turf, you aren't just getting rid of a few pesky yellow flowers, you're systematically dismantling a highly complex living ecosystem that keeps your local soil active, sponge-like and healthy. This stubborn refusal to work with the land isn't a new pattern, and it's brought some heavy historical consequences along with it. Back in the 1930s, the tragic events of the Dust Bowl showed the entire country what happens. When you strip the soil of its natural covers, diverse deep root systems and organic defenses, industrial plowing tore up the highly resilient prairie plants, leaving the naked earth completely vulnerable to extreme wind erosion, and our modern backyard habits often replicate that exact same ecological blunder on a smaller, localized scale. We pull out the deeply rooted wild plants that anchor the earth, leaving our garden soil exposed to the baking sun, or we spend a fortune on synthetic products to keep fragile, non-native vegetables alive. We've swallowed the modern lie that high-quality sustenance only comes from a plastic grocery store container or a heavily babied raised bed. The simple truth is that the wild plants thriving without any of your help are often the most resilient, nutrient-dense options available on your property. When you add up the money, time, and physical strain spent on these yard chemicals, it's an exhausting, synthetic cycle that leaves the earth depleted, and it's a bit ironic that we're literally paying out of pocket to destroy a free harvest that plants itself without a single drop of human sweat. Now, if you want to know why these wild plants are so incredibly tough, you've got to look down into the dark, hidden world of soil biology. When a weed pops up in a heavily compacted, worn-out patch of dirt, it isn't trying to ruin your afternoon. It's actually performing a vital, urgent piece of ecological repair work. According to the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, deep taproots function as dynamic biological drills in the landscape. Resilient wild plants push their roots deep down into the hard subsoil, fracturing dense hardpan earth and mining vital minerals that shallow-rooted turfgrass could never hope to reach. They pull up essential calcium, potassium, and magnesium from deep subterranean layers, storing those concentrated nutrients directly inside their green leaves. Research from the Cornell Cooperative Extension highlights that this specialized deep mining capability is exactly what makes wild greens so exceptionally nutrient-dense compared to cultivated vegetables. When these plants die back during the fall, they deposit those rich, bioavailable minerals right onto the surface, naturally rebuilding the topsoil over time. The Rodale Institute has been studying soil health and organic agricultural systems for over 70 years now, and their extensive field data suggests that biodiversity above the ground directly mirrors microbial health below the surface. A yard that's allowed to host a diverse mix of wild plants supports a massive, thriving network of beneficial mycorrhizal fungi and soil bacteria. This underground biological highway trades essential nutrients with plant roots, making your entire property more drought-resistant, biologically vibrant, and structurally stable. If this practical, down-to-earth perspective is opening your eyes a bit, it helps when folks share this information with other sustainable gardeners in their community. But before we start picking anything, there's a serious piece of caution we need to discuss. Because while these wild plants are absolute powerhouses of nutrition, their natural efficiency can sometimes turn into a dangerous double-edged sword. Because wild greens are so incredibly effective at drawing up materials from the deep earth, they don't just stop at the good minerals, they absorb whatever pollution happens to be lingering in the surrounding topsoil. This specific biological trait is known as phytoremediation, and it means that if your soil contains old residues from chemical lawn treatments, heavy metals like lead from historic house paint, or urban runoff, these wild weeds will pull those exact toxins straight into their green tissues. That's why you should never graze on a patch of weeds growing within 50 ft of a busy roadway, a parking lot edge, or an old barn foundation. You've got to know the history of your land, and you have to be absolutely certain you aren't misidentifying what you're looking at, because nature has a few dangerous lookalikes that can cause serious trouble if you aren't paying attention. Let's start with our first backyard regular, which is common clover, a fantastic protein source hiding right under your mower blades. Pastures that are thick with clover consistently produce healthier, better-fed livestock than pastures consisting of plain grass alone. Clover belongs to the legume family, which is the exact same botanical group that gives us cultivated beans, peas, and lentils. Because of that heritage, its small leaves carry a usable protein content that typical lawn grass simply can't touch. A simple handful of fresh clover leaves contains more usable protein per gram than a standard serving of iceberg lettuce, along with a solid dose of vitamin C, beta-carotene, and calcium. Back during the hard years of the historic potato famines in Ireland, boiled clover leaves were a literal lifesaver for families whose crops had turned to black rot. To utilize it safely, harvest the young leaves before the plant sets its blossoms when they're still tender and sweet, and just make sure you're picking from an area that hasn't seen a chemical spray rig in at least 3 years. But before we start picking anything, there's a serious piece of caution we need to discuss. Because while these wild plants are absolute powerhouses of nutrition, their natural efficiency can sometimes turn into a dangerous double-edged sword. Because wild greens are so incredibly effective at drawing up materials from the deep earth, they don't just stop at the good minerals, they absorb whatever pollution happens to be lingering in the surrounding topsoil. This specific biological trait is known as phytoremediation, and it means that if your soil contains old residues from chemical lawn treatments, heavy metals like lead from historic house paint, or urban runoff, these wild weeds will pull those exact toxins straight into their green tissues. That's why you should never graze on a patch of weeds growing within 50 ft of a busy roadway, a parking lot edge, or an old barn foundation. You've got to know the history of your land, and you have to be absolutely certain you aren't misidentifying what you're looking at, because nature has a few dangerous lookalikes that can cause serious trouble if you aren't paying attention. Moving on to number 2, we've got wood sorrel, a heart-shaped little leaf with a fascinating history. Long before modern science could explain vitamin C, old maritime records show sailors on long ocean voyages chewed on this plant to stave off scurvy. Its sharp citrusy bite comes from a natural compound called oxalic acid, giving it a vitamin C content that rivals expensive store-bought citrus fruits. You can identify it instantly by looking closely at the leaves. They aren't round like clover, but are shaped like three perfect little hearts, joined at the points, accompanied by small yellow flowers. Now, because of that high oxalic acid content, you don't want to go eating wood sorrel by the bucketful every single day, especially if you're someone who deals with calcium oxalate kidney stones. But a small handful tossed into a fresh summer salad adds a bright lemony kick that cuts through heavy dressings beautifully. Number 3 is broadleaf plantain, a plant that healers across 4 continents have used for closing wounds. This low-growing green thrives in compacted soils, driveway cracks, and gravel paths. Its resilience comes from iridoid glycosides and soothing mucilage, which calm irritation and protect scrapes. Look for broad oval leaves with 7 distinct parallel veins growing in a low rosette. It's incredibly tough, resisting foot traffic, and it's likely sitting quietly in your driveway right now. Then there's chickweed, which is typically the very first green carpet to show up when the winter snow melts. Old-timers used to call this early spring period the hungry gap, because the winter root cellar was completely empty. Chickweed fills that gap perfectly, providing fresh zinc, iron, calcium, and vitamin A, right when the landscape looks dead and brown. The leaves have a remarkably mild, slightly grassy taste that mimics baby spinach, making it an incredibly easy wild green for beginners. It grows in low, dense mats in cool, damp, shaded garden beds. You do need to use your eyes carefully with this one. Toxic spurge varieties love to creep into the same spaces. The reliable test is simple. Snap the stem between your fingers. If it oozes a thick, milky white sap, you're holding toxic spurge. But if the fluid runs completely clear, you've found safe chickweed. Look for a single line of tiny hairs running down the stem, and you'll know you've found the true first sign of spring. Our 5th plant is curly dock, a tall, rusty-looking weed that entire communities used to rely on when the grain harvests failed across Europe. This tall plant pushes up a heavy stalk that produces thousands of tiny seeds by the end of summer, turning a deep, rich brown as they dry out in the sun. The young leaves at the base of the plant are just as valuable, carrying iron levels that easily compete with cultivated spinach. But just like spinach and wood sorrel, those leaves contain a heavy dose of oxalates, which is why they taste sharply sour as they get older. To prepare curly dock safely, you want to harvest only the young, tender leaves before the tall flower stalk begins to shoot up. Then give them a quick 60-second boil in fresh water and discard the liquid, which removes the bulk of the bitter oxalates and leaves you with a rich, dark green side dish. Number 6 takes us to burdock, a plant that perfectly demonstrates how much our modern perspective determines what we value. If you travel over to Japan, you'll find this plant's long root sold fresh in almost every grocery store under the name gobo, featured in daily stir-fries and traditional winter soups. But here in North America, folks spend their Saturdays sweating, digging, and cursing this exact same plant, treating it like an invasive plague on their property. Burdock root is incredibly rich in a specialized soluble fiber called inulin, which your body can't digest on its own, but your beneficial gut microbes absolutely love to eat. It acts as a powerful prebiotic, supporting the digestive tract and your natural immune defenses. The plant is easy to identify by its massive, elephant ear-shaped leaves that can grow over 1 ft long. To harvest it for dinner, look for first-year plants that haven't sent up a flower stalk yet. Grab a sturdy shovel and dig down deep to get the long, carrot-like root. Then scrub it clean, peel the tough skin and sauté it with a little soy sauce and sesame oil. Next up is stinging nettle, a plant that demands absolute respect before it offers you some of the best nutrition on the planet. Anyone who's ever brushed against a wild patch of nettle with bare ankles knows the penalty. A sharp, burning rash caused by thousands of tiny, hollow silica hairs that act like hypodermic needles, injecting formic acid and histamine straight into your skin. But if you put on a thick pair of leather gloves and harvest it anyway, you'll unlock a green that outclasses almost anything in the supermarket. Nettle leaves carry an exceptionally high protein content for a leafy green, along with massive amounts of iron, calcium, and vitamin K. To fix it safely, take those gloved leaves and drop them into a pot of boiling water for just 60 seconds. That brief hit of heat completely collapses the silica needles and neutralizes the stinging acid, turning the plant into a completely safe, rich green that tastes like a cross between spinach and fresh seaweed. Our eighth plant is lamb's quarters, an ancient grain that body preservation experts regularly find inside the archaeological records across northern Europe. Long before modern agriculture started clearing fields for single-crop farming, this plant was a highly valued dietary staple across Europe, Asia, and North America. It's a close botanical cousin to both spinach and modern quinoa, and gram for gram, its green leaves provide significantly more calcium, iron, and vitamin A. You can recognize it reliably by looking at the new growth right at the top of the plant. It has a very distinct powdery white mealy coating. Look for the undersides of the goosefoot-shaped leaves that feels like fine dust between your fingers. You want to pay close attention here, because very young nightshade plants can sometimes look similar to a beginner. But nightshades completely lack that signature white powder and can be highly toxic. Strip the young leaves, give them a good rinse, and cook them up exactly like you would prepare a batch of fresh garden spinach. Number 9 brings us back to Purslane, that ground-hugging succulent we mentioned earlier that completely shocked researchers when its chemical breakdown was first published. Purslane contains an incredibly high level of alpha-linolenic acid, a crucial plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, making it one of the most concentrated green sources tested in a laboratory setting. It loves the absolute worst spots on your property, thriving in blistering summer heat, gravel driveways, and baked garden soil where every other cultivated vegetable has already wilted and died. The thick reddish stems and paddle-shaped leaves hold onto water like a cactus, giving the plant a crisp, juicy texture and a pleasant, tangy flavor that mimics a fresh cucumber. Toss the fresh, washed stems raw into a summer salad with some homegrown tomatoes and olive oil. Just remember our golden safety rule. When you break a stem of purslane, the juice must run completely clear. If you ever see a milky white sap come out of a low-growing succulent mat, you're holding toxic spurge, so drop it immediately and wash your hands. Number 10 is self-heal, a small plant with a square stem and compact violet flower spikes that has been documented across ethnobotanical literature as a frontline helper for surface infections long before modern alternatives arrived. Its primary active compounds, including rosmarinic acid and complex polysaccharides, work to support the body's natural defenses when dealing with minor tissue issues. It grows quietly in lawns, disturbed soil, and shaded orchard borders without any encouragement, though most folks mow right over it before it ever gets a chance to bloom. For topical applications on minor skin scrapes, traditional practice involves preparing a concentrated wash from the leaves and stems, or using it as a simple mouth rinse for minor gum irritation. Finally, at number 11, we have the iconic dandelion, the single most targeted flower in the modern lawn care industry. What most folks don't realize is that dandelions aren't native to American soil at all, and they didn't get across the Atlantic by accident. Early European settlers packed these seeds into their wooden trunks deliberately, bringing them over as a prized food crop and a reliable winter medicine, treating them with the exact same care they gave to carrots or cabbage. Every single part of a dandelion can be utilized. The jagged leaves are packed with vitamin K, the bright yellow flowers are full of unique antioxidants, and the long taproot can be scrubbed, chopped, roasted in a low oven until it turns dark brown, and ground up to create a rich, caffeine-free coffee substitute that saved many a morning during the supply shortages of the Civil War. To enjoy the leaves without puckering your mouth, harvest them early in the spring from the center of the rosette when they're small, or saute the mature leaves with a little garlic and bacon fat to mellow out that natural bitter flavor. Now that you know what's growing in your yard, remember that safe foraging requires common sense. Your absolute number one rule is 100% positive identification. If you're unsure, leave it. And if your home was built before 1978, play it smart and test your soil for lead before eating anything out of the ground. When you harvest, take less than 20% of native plants to support local pollinators, but feel free to heavily forage those aggressive non-natives. Just stick to the young, tender center leaves using a simple pair of pocket pruners. By putting these wild growers on your plate, you're actively balancing your local ecosystem and reclaiming your food independence. Hit subscribe to keep building a self-sufficient backyard, And join me next week when we'll turn these weeds into a powerful liquid fertilizer tea. Keep your boots dirty, and I'll see you in the yard.